Every startup has a cocoon phase, even though we usually don't refer to it as that, at least not until we're past it. And the tech organizations are the major areas where we need to be aware of this. It starts in a way so that, a new startup, usually scrappy, gets you to a certain point. Whatever you did in the garage mode actually was successful. Be it because you got your MVP out, you started getting some traction, you closed some deals, whatever. However, scrappy will not cut it in your new phase. As you ought to eventually grow as an organization, you have to learn how to make that leap in order to transform from the larval stage into an actual butterfly. And to do that, you have to go through this abyss that normally people don't talk about. They say that you have to grow, they say that you have to become better, change things up, but what do you actually need to do? In this video, we're going to talk about this startup adolescence, about the awkward phase with the acne where you have to go through it in order to emerge, a full adult, in order to have your tech organization be everything that the company needs you to be in order to keep hitting goal after goal. That's the topic of this week's video. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive advisor, and I usually focus on how we get tech organizations from the company's biggest expense to its biggest advantage. This is a big part of that. Now, a big problem here is that this leap is something that people are really afraid to do. That's why it's a leap. We're afraid of falling. And so many founders that I work with tend to associate the scrappiness with their identity of the startup. Even if we're making this leap all for the positive reasons, because we know we're going to be emerging better, because it's the right thing to do for the company, all of those things considered, people still have a fear of doing this. They have an initial avoidance. They don't want to do it. But that's the trap. In order to be through this weird cocoon phase as fast as possible and emerge as healthy as possible, you need to, really get into it deliberately with full intent of doing it, going through it. And usually the problem is that people don't tell you exactly what you want to do. I'm going to be listing some of the things that you have to change in your mindset, that you have to try to do differently in order to survive this phase and create a tech organization that's really ready to kick behind. Trying to keep the language okay here. You need to understand that this leap, this growth is not a single decision. This is actually a collection of adjustments that we have to do across the organization and usually across the company in order to do it effectively. And each one of these little decisions and little tweaks and tunings in our mindset is needed to do it faster and can be extremely beneficial. I'm going to be listing a handful of those that I think, from my experience, will make a huge impact on your organization and will really help you if you're currently finding yourself in that cocoon phase. And by the way, that cocoon phase might be repeating. It's not just the phase from 30 employees to 80, but sometimes we see it re-happening as the company grows or as it pivots and as things change materially. Every time that you sense that we are no longer able to just keep pushing hard, it means that it's time to probably re-emerge differently. These are the things that I think will really help you there. Number one, kill the nostalgia. I know we all like to think back on those happy garage days where everyone knew what anyone else was doing. You could read all the code. By the way, no one can read all the code now with AI. You understood exactly what was happening. Each person had the entire system in their head. You knew what every person was working on. You knew how to help whatever area people needed help with, whatever bug that people were talking about. You always had the answer. We never needed processes. We didn't need to think. Everything was just flowing, right? The good old days. But there's a reason you don't hear about a lot of billion-dollar companies that still operate like that. Just so far that sort of structure can take you. And just like Maybe you enjoy thinking about the happy days when you were young or when your kids were really young. It was just fun. And you look at them now and they're older and they're embarrassed by having you around. Like, oh my God, I really miss those old days. Yes, I get you. But we also realize that growing is what we're supposed to do. We have to continue. We have to move on. That's nature for human beings, but also for organizations. So kill the nostalgia. Stop telling yourself that the good organization is only that small one where nothing can grow and everything is limited by what you can withhold in your brain. It does not make sense. Number 2, realize that people grow or they leave, and that's a good thing. Sometimes I see companies that try so hard to maintain everyone in the organization, but as we grow, things change. That's what this phase means. We're going to emerge out of it different. The culture is different. What we do looks different. How we operate, the skills needed are all different. And therefore, some people that you have already are a match. Maybe they already work in that sort of environment. Amazing. Others, they will grow. They will adjust. They will become the right people also for this new phase. Awesome, right? No complaints whatsoever. But there are people who are not the right match for your new phase. Maybe they just don't like it. Maybe they lack the experience. Maybe they've been through it. They don't want to do it again. Or maybe they are too eager to maintain their, Peter Pans. They don't want to grow. They want to remain children forever. Whatever the reason. Trying to have everyone stay is almost like trying not to grow up. You have to realize that it's perfectly fine for people to look around and say, okay, this is not for me. Or the organization is growing and I want to grow in a different manner. You have to accept it. That's life. We are not trying to retain everyone at the cost of contorting the organization, agreeing to whatever passion project they want, or weird titles, or cutting the organization in a weird way just to make someone be pleased. That does not make sense in the long term. If they're not a match, fine, just part ways, remain friends, don't burn bridges, and help them if you can, but that's fine. They ought to go wherever they actually fit. That's the win-win situation for everyone around. Number 3, start beating your head into the wall. This is what I said earlier about needing to do things differently. Once you reach a point where just trying to do it harder and harder and harder no longer works, the solution is not to continue till you pass out. The solution is to move from working harder to working smarter. Realize that an upgrade is needed. A change in how we're doing things is needed. It's not just we can always keep pushing more, CPUs to a different problem. Sometimes we need to just upgrade the algorithm or decide that feature is no longer needed or whatever. And the same applies in your organization. If you feel like things are not working, take a second, look at it from a distance and try to think, what can we just do differently? How can we have an upgrade happen here as opposed to just trying to crank it up again and again? Because things scale in the same direction only so much. There's not the ability to keep doing things and just hoping that we'll just 10x the same stuff year after year and it's going to keep working. You have to mix things up. You have to have different ways of doing things, have experiments, etc. Don't just keep again hammering your head against the wall. It's not good for you, and usually it doesn't really solve anything. It makes some people feel like they're hustling, and that makes them feel like they're doing something, they're active. But when it comes to the actual impact, the actual outcomes of all of that huff and puff, it's nothing. So I highly recommend finding a way to upgrade. By the way, if you need help upgrading, this is a lot of what I do in my advisory of people in ensuring that their tech organizations grow faster than the company needs them to grow. So if you need help with that, my email is in the video description. But either way, don't just keep trying the same stuff and hoping it's going to work. I don't know, it's like the kid trying to still fit themselves into the same pair of shoes. Eventually, it's going to be really, really painful and you're going to be walking funny. Number 4, don't expect a clear map. Go for progress. This is something that's crucial because a lot of the times as we're doing these things, it's not like anyone has the one true solution. Anyone anyone who knows exactly what we ought to do. But the key is to start making progress. See what's not working, have a hypothesis, and start working towards, let's test that out. Let's try this, do that. Make progress, fail forward, so that at least you're learning, you're trying, you're doing something new. This is how we usually go out of the cocooning phase fast. I see companies get stuck here because they realize that something needs to change, but then, they start spending a year, I was going to say a month, it's never a month, almost a year, envisioning the perfect rewrite of the system. Version 5 is going to be amazing, next gen is going to work like this, and they just keep thinking about it and working and finding another edge case that they need to make it perfect, etc. And they just waste months. I'm like, in the meantime, you could have rewritten those 3 microservices that are 80% of the hassle that you're going through right now, and then decide about the next step. You don't have to wait till you have an amazing revelation and say, okay, I know what you're going to be doing. That's probably not what's going to happen. So no map, start making progress based, on the compass. Know where you want to go, have a hypothesis. I think that's the right direction right now. Go there. Have the fog of war disperse a bit and realize whether you're now in a better position or not. Yes, sometimes we need to do some deeper strategic thinking, but a lot of times in the cocoon phase, this is about experimenting and finding what works better, and speed and iterations here actually matter more than one grand, huge vision. And lastly, chase progress, not vanity. Sometimes when you go through this cocoon stage, people start looking at the wrong things as how we'll know that we're making progress. As in, okay, if we're gonna become that sort of company, I at least want to have that title, or we need to have at least that level of management. We need directors and engineering managers, or we need to have that sort of we need to move to that sort of structure. I need to also be the person in charge of products. So now I need to be CPTO and not just CTO, whatever people get into. It's just vanity metrics when it comes to the headcount, when it comes to how things look, about your titles, about responsibilities. What's actually important is to see progress. So every time that you're thinking about a change, try to think between you and yourself, what do you expect to see changes as a result of doing that? So if you're thinking about changing the structure, creating a new team, whatever, try to think what actually is going to be the improvement that you're expecting, have that hypothesis in your mind, and then if that still makes through the test, you look at it and you're like, okay, this makes sense. It's not just for my ego. It's not just because I read an article online that made me feel like this would be cool. I actually think that this is based, the result is going to be worth it, etc. Then do it. Going through all of these 5 quick ways to unlodge yourself from the cocoon will help your team gain momentum, experiment faster and with purpose. Not just experiment as in we're going to throw everything we can on the wall and see what sticks, but we're making educated guesses. We're going towards a direction based on our thoughts, based on our instincts, based on our current hypothesis that we think is going to be a good bet. That's what the last point is about. In doing so, you will start making more and more progress faster, letting go the things that no longer help, even if they were amazing. You know that Maria Kondo thing, right? Just tell it that you really appreciate everything that they did for you, the garage stage, that person who was amazing but will not cut it in your new version, whatever. Let go of those things, embrace the new things that you had to do in order to get there, and start plowing forward. There's no other way of getting there. We all go through puberty. We just need to stick with it, know what's good for us, and do it as fast as possible in order to emerge on the other end a full-grown tech organization. That's it for this video. As always, if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments or in my email in the video description. Be it good stuff, which I always like to hear, and even the bad stuff. Have at me. I enjoy hearing from you. It's always a pleasure. So please let me know what you thought. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. It really helps me and will help ensure that you don't miss the next video, and I'll see you there. Ciao.